Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yasoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Banachari Yamuna Tira Banachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Bala Girivana Dari Jaya Jaya Gopi Jana Bala Girivana Dari Jaya Yasoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yasoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yasoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Banachari Yamuna Tira Banachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Bala Girivana Dari Jaya Gopi Jana Bala Girivana Dari Jaya Yasoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yasoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yasoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Banachari Yamuna Tira Banachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Nittai Gaura Haribo, Haribo, Nittai Gaura Haribo. Nittai Gaura Haribo, Haribo, Nittai Gaura Haribo. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parvajakacharya Asatarasatasi Simad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga. Glories of Srila Prabhupada. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pachani Nirvishesa Sanyavari Pasakacha De Satani Panchakopa Tirubhascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Hare Krishna. Thank you for coming here this evening. As some of you may know, Daiva Shakti, she always gives this Sunday evening program, and it's Prabhupada Lilamrita. So she asked me yesterday if I could do it today, and she said, because she always does Lilamrita, and she knows I don't. So she said, just you could do Prabhupada Katha, you'll be able to do that. I said, I'll do my best. We had a class the other day, the day before Srila Prabhupada's disappearance day. It was 6 o'clock in the morning. So it was a different class. Was anyone at that class that's here today? Hare Krishna. Yes. I won't be speaking about that today, but it was a very, very special day leading up to Prabhupada's disappearance. And of course, for that I was very busy being the MC, introducing all my God brothers and God sisters. But the day before, I was actually feeling much more part of Srila Prabhupada's disappearance. And I tried to speak about Srila Prabhupada's compassion. And I told a few different stories about Srila Prabhupada's amazing compassion. Nobody could be so compassionate as Srila Prabhupada, regardless of what his disciples were doing. He just wanted to engage them in devotional service at every step, every turn. Srila Prabhupada gave us so many variety of instructions and orders, regulative principles, chanting rounds. But even if we were struggling, he always knew the remedy was service, to give service. And I gave a few examples of that, some very specific and amazing examples of Srila Prabhupada's mercy and his compassion and his understanding in how to spread Krishna consciousness all over the world. But today, of course, I had various association with Srila Prabhupada in Vrindavan, both at Radha Damodar Temple and here in his quarters at Krishna Balaram Mandir. But I was thinking of talking about two topics, and I very easily go off of topics because my mind has difficulty staying on track, and I get into various things. But I was hoping to at least start out trying to talk about two things that Srila Prabhupada didn't speak about very much, but he practiced. And one was the principle of Ayurvedic lifestyle. Prabhupada very much followed an Ayurvedic lifestyle. And the other thing I was thinking of talking about, if we get to that, was Srila Prabhupada's schedule, his regulation and his daily schedule. I know over the years, and even from the very beginning, we would sometimes talk about Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and very specifically how each part of the day he had his service with the government, he had his time for chanting, his time for writing, his time for reading, and as he laid it out, and then we all got to see that. But being with Srila Prabhupada, I saw very much the same thing. Prabhupada had a schedule. It wasn't that he just 24 hours through the day, whatever needed to be done, he was doing it. That was also there. But very much it was within the framework of his schedule, his daily schedule. And as his servant and secretary, like that, and Sanskrit editor, sometime maintaining Srila Prabhupada's schedule, we didn't have a specific schedule. We just had to follow what Srila Prabhupada wanted. So I guess the best place that we can start with his schedule would be for sunrise. Vedically, that's also there. The day begins with the sunrise, not with midnight. I know even some Guru coolies, they figured out how to eat on Ekadasi without eating on Ekadasi. And that was before the sunrise, and that day, you can have some grains, because Ekadasi starts with the sunrise. So anyway, Prabhupada's day, leading up to sunrise, of course, was a little before. And in most places he stayed. The sun was rising generally around the same time, somewhere around 6 o'clock in the morning or so. Just like here we see now, I think it's probably around 6 o'clock, later even, maybe 6:30 it's rising as we approach winter. So I had my service that I had to do to follow Srila Prabhupada's schedule. So if we start early in the morning, it's around 5 o'clock. So now Srila Prabhupada has already been up for several hours. But around 5 o'clock in the morning, he would wash, clean himself, important, brush his teeth. So we can start with Srila Prabhupada, of course, going to the bathroom, brushing his teeth. And what did he brush his teeth with? Preferably, well, always datung. Prabhupada called datung, a twig. Didn't use a toothbrush. See, again, Ayurveda, the whole principle of Ayurveda, very, very clean. So there's nothing worse, actually, than you can put in your mouth than a toothbrush that you've owned for anywhere from 1 month to a year. People stick that same nasty thing in their mouths every day, but Prabhupada didn't do that. He had his datung, his twig. In Vrindavan, you could actually just go to the bazaar. You could buy a whole pack of them. Like instead of a pack of whatever, cigarettes, you could buy a pack of datung. And there might be 12 to 20 of them just wrapped in a little piece of string or whatever. And they look kind of like the size of a pencil. They're about that thick and about that long. The ideal one, as he said, would be neem. But there were alternatives as well. Because as you traveled around the world, you still had to get the twig. A place like New York City, you had to find twigs. You had to find did you do that? Yes, eucalyptus, that's what you could do outside of India and America, of course in Australia. Eucalyptus also antiseptic, very nice antiseptic. So the idea was to get the most antiseptic thing. So here we have neem, you could even use mango, anyway, variety of things, but it had to be there. And sometimes in the course of traveling, it could present a problem when Prabhupada, and he knew when to ask for it. He wouldn't ask for it if he knew it was there. You know, Prabhupada knew everything. As he would walk to the bathroom and he would say, datung. That means he knew there wasn't one there. So then you would have a frantic search to find a twig. And then the end of it, of course, when you would make it bristly. It would have bristles on the end. By breaking it from whatever part of the tree it was on, you would have your bristles. So every day, this is how Prabhupada brushed his teeth, with this datung. And then when you were done brushing, the next step was to crack it. Then it became your tongue cleaner. And then, of course, he would just deposit it in a little can there in the bathroom. And this was one of the many items that his disciples were eager to get a hold of. You know, so many items. You could get a Brahmin thread off of his servant. If you were very fortunate, you could get some hair from his head. Every 2 weeks, he would shave his head, or his servant would shave his head. Get into more of that later. So that's how the morning would start, with the datung. And I guess as a point of reference, I didn't say he bathed in the morning, because Prabhupada was advised after his multiple heart attacks that that was not good for his health. Prabhupada said 3 things kept him alive. Some of you will know those 3 things. Yes? What 3 things Prabhupada attributed for his life? Massage. And the servant got to do that. So that was a very wonderful thing, to think that you were part. Morning walk. Morning walk. We know that goes way back to 1967. And Brahmananda, he would tell those stories. Brahmananda and Gargamuni were there after Prabhupada had his heart attack and was in the hospital. They described one doctor, and they said he was a drunkard, this particular doctor. So we wouldn't say that he was the most authoritative person, but he was a doctor. And he was talking to Brahmananda outside of Prabhupada's room. And he said to Brahmananda, he said, your leader, he needs to preach less and walk more. Prabhupada took that advice. This is the principle. You can take advice even from a dirty place. Prabhupada overheard him. Not that he even said it to him directly. He overheard him. That might have even been a stronger message, hearing it from outside, that he's saying he needs to exercise, he said. He's just sitting behind his desk all day. And from that time on, I can say, I remember very few days Prabhupada didn't go on a morning walk. Literally, it wouldn't stop. You know, in the U.S., what do they say? The postman, you know, rain, sleet, snow, wind, whatever, the mail goes out. Prabhupada, rain, sleet, snow, he went on his morning walk. So all of this, from this time around 5 in the morning, brush his teeth, and he would wash, and then he would go sit behind his desk. So while he was getting ready in the bathroom, my service was, a desk was just like this, about this size, and Prabhupada had his asana, his cushions on the floor. So then he would come out of the bathroom, and he would sit down behind the desk. Now already, his mirror, you can see his little mirror, compact, like many ladies have with the powder to put on. Well, he had the mirror, and on the other side was a picture of his spiritual master on a round, compact type thing. So before he came in to his room, I would open up the mirror. It wasn't just sitting there, it was open. And then he had a little tilak set, call it his tilak set, that he traveled with. That would be in his white bag. So everywhere he went around the world, this silver tilak set was there. So that contained the mirror, and then there was a katuri, small katuri, about, no bigger than this, little cup. And in there was a ball of chandan. And it would start out, it would be the size of a golf ball. It was roundish. And Prabhupada always kept it round. So then, besides that katuri with the chandan in it, there was a small lota, just also about the size of a golf ball, this lota. And the lota had a little lid that went on it and had a tiny spoon that went in there. So by the time he would come to his desk, the lota's there, it's open, the spoon is in there, there's water in the lota, and his ball of chandan is sitting there. So Prabhupada would take the water in his spoon, measured amount of water. He always knew exactly how many drops to put in. Do you have something to add? Yes. Wherever. It could come from Vrindavan. Prabhupada wasn't particular about some things. It was always there. He would come to India at least a few times a year, so it wasn't difficult to get. Just like what we use every day. So that was the size of a ball. So we would put the water in, always the same amount of drops, because he's going to use so much. So he put it in and he get his ball. You may see this in videos. There's certainly a few photos. So he'd have a big, nice big pile of chandan on his palm. And then, of course, with the mirror there, he'd have the mirror in his hand, and he'd put on. It was one of my things I always say. You can become Krishna conscious just watching Prabhupada apply his tilak. Because everything he did with precision. He did with care, and he did with attention, and it was always seva. Everything he did is seva. So he put it on, and always, then he marked the other parts of his body, put big ones, one there, up to the top of the shoulder. So he put it on all the parts of his body. Sometimes devotees would be in the room, because after he's done, what's he going to do? Morning walk. In different places like Los Angeles, even here, wherever, sometimes 3, 4, 5 devotees, they would be fortunate enough to sit and just watch Srila Prabhupada. That's what we could do. Didn't even have to hear him, just to look at him, and you would be ecstatic, just looking at him. And he did everything so, if 1,000 people were there, if no one was there, didn't change how he did it. He didn't do anything for an audience. Once he told Vishaka, she was taking photos of him. She says, and Prabhupada said, "Is this all right like this?" And of course she laughed. She said, "Prabhupada, everything is all right. Every photo I take is perfect of you. You're always perfect." So then he'd put his tilak on. Then he's sitting on his desk, cross-legged and straight. His back always straight. Prabhupada wasn't a sloucher. You'll see photos with him sometimes lying back. But when he sat up, he sat very straight. So then after applying his tilak, then he put his hand under his kurta and would get his thread. And then he would start chanting Gayatri Mantra. So now if there's other devotees in the room, what do? They grab their threads. If there's Brahmins, they're going to grab Prabhupada's chanting Gayatri Mantra. What better time to chant Gayatri Mantra? And he did it 3 times a day, his Gayatri Mantra, every day. So then he's chanting Gayatri Mantra. And I'm always in the room at this time because we're getting to go on the morning walk. And when I see the others starting to chant their Gayatri Mantra, I know it's going to be fun. Because no one could do anything faster than Srila Prabhupada. So he's chanting his Gayatri, and these young men, they're chanting Gayatri. When Prabhupada was finished, he gets up. Never waste a moment, Prabhupada. Everything he did, perfect. So then he gets up. He starts walking towards the door. I'm standing at the door. New Dwarka, Los Angeles is an example. I'm right at the door. I have his cane, I have his shoes, or his sandals, whatever it may be. Now the other devotees, what are they doing? Chanting their Gayatri Mantra. Because once you start, every Brahmin knows, somebody says something, you show them chanting, leave me. So now, as Prabhupada would say, dilemma. What do? Prabhupada's already walking out the door, and they're trying to finish their Gayatri Mantra. And Prabhupada didn't make a smile, but I knew he was smiling. He was laughing. We amused him. We're like little kids in the playpen, trying to imitate daddy, mommy, doing things. That's what we were doing. Here in 1975, when they had the installation, and Prabhupada's godbrother is sitting beside them, and the devotees are chanting the mantras and all, and Prabhupada's godbrother said, they're not saying it properly. And Prabhupada just sitting, and then a few minutes go by, and again he says, they're not saying it properly, Maharaj. They're not chanting properly. as we do in 3 times. 3 times. They're not, they're wrong. And Prabhupada just looked at him. He said, they're just practicing. This is what we were always doing. Prabhupada made it like we were doing everything properly when he saw all we're doing was practicing. We're trying to learn how to be Vaishnava, how to speak properly, walk properly, clean properly, everything. So somehow or other, when Prabhupada would walk, and again, he didn't waste a moment. And as a servant, you had to be very attentive to every move he made, because he would come towards me, and he did it every day. There's 2 shoes, and I have this very fortunate shoehorn. We had an ivory shoehorn at that time, I remember, in Los Angeles. It was longish. And there's Prabhupada would have socks on. So now the 2 shoes are there. So as Prabhupada's coming, you've got to, it sounds very simple. You'd hand him his cane. And as he's walking, he didn't stop to put his shoes on. He literally would step into his shoe, say his left shoe. And then his next foot would go forward. And you would have to get his right foot into the right shoe as he was walking without creating any kind of a disturbance for him. I once had a godbrother beg me, let me put Prabhupada's shoes on. I said, okay. It happened once, and I saw as Prabhupada was having a difficult time, and I realized this is my service. I know what to do. Do it. So after that, I wasn't so, bringing in his lunch prasadam, that was okay. But putting his shoes on, I made sure that I did it. So that's Prabhupada would be walking out the door, and as he's walking, 1 shoe, next shoe. And so he just kept walking, and you're handing him his cane. Then, of course, morning walk was there. Morning walk always was over an hour, sometimes up to an hour and a half. And you never knew Srila Prabhupada's moods. Sometimes he'd be very talkative. Sometimes he'd talk to devotees about what's going on in the world, the political situation. Sometimes he talked about what he was translating in Srimad Bhagavatam, just like when he was 5th canto, about the universe, all the planets, and he would quiz the devotees. What do the scientists say? And we'd have lively discussions. Sometimes his hand would just be in his bead bag. He'd be chanting japa. When he was doing that, see, the morning walk was, everyone wanted that opportunity just to say 1 word to Prabhupada, have him respond to a question or some interaction with him. But it wasn't necessarily a good thing if he didn't institute the conversation. You had to be very careful. Like Prabhupada would say, Guru is not a plaything. You follow what he wants to do, not what you want to do. Guru Das Pandit was his service here towards the very final months, and I think he was a little talkative. And Prabhupada said to him, you don't initiate a conversation with your spiritual master. He never said that to me. I never initiated a conversation with Prabhupada. Even if he initiated it, I have difficulties responding, because you always want to say the correct thing, because you always felt like it was a test. It was never a test. Sometimes Prabhupada just like to have a conversation. I always remember Bhaktivedanta Manor. He would stand there, look out those nice leaded glass windows onto the expansive garden, the front garden there. Pond was there. One time he was looking out the window, and there were some pigeons flew by, landed in the tree. And Prabhupada said to me, if you have a boil, he said, you put pigeon stool on it. He said, it'll cure it. Whenever I see a devotee with a boil, I always tell them, Prabhupada said, put pigeon stool on it. No one's ever done it. But he said, that's what you do. You put the pigeon poo on it. So you never knew what he would say. Another time he was looking out the window. I didn't see anything out there. And he looked at me. He said, what is the most beautiful animal? And again, you want to be right. You don't want to just say something. At least no one did. So I'm thinking, most beautiful animal. I'm thinking, what animals are beautiful? So finally I thought, cow. Got to be a cow. Krishna loves the cows. Prabhupada looked at me and said, no. He said, the horse. Beautiful structure, muscle structure. The horse, he said, most beautiful animal. Then you go, yes, Prabhupada. That's Do I get a good mark for agreeing afterwards? Never knew what to do. Always so much fun when you look back and see how Prabhupada was with us. Huh? And when he was with you, whenever he would talk to me, I would think, he's talking to me. Look at him talking to me. Why would he even talk to me? I'm just a servant, invisible person. He liked that, servant being invisible. He told me right there in the room, called me in. I guess he had a reason he called me in. He said the first-class servant knows what to do without being asked. He said the second-class servant, you ask him and he does it. That's second class. If you have to ask him, he already is not first class, because he should know what to do. And the third class, Prabhupada said he doesn't do it, or he does it begrudgingly. I love Prabhupada's use of English language, how he would say it. He does it begrudgingly. So his idea is, servant, you were supposed to be first class. Many things I knew what to do because his schedule was very regular. All you had to do was understand his schedule, and as he would say, do the needful. Just do what you needed to do. You knew. So that was the morning walk. Sometimes in Jew, he would walk generally either at the beach, by a beach, or in a park. They were favorite places. Prabhupada liked nature very much. Bhaktivedanta Manor, right? Beautiful quarters, nice big sitting room, bathroom bigger than my flat here in MVT, nice bedroom. If the sun was shining, Prabhupada would go out and sit by the trees. Didn't care about buildings, gold leaf building. None of that mattered. He liked nature. He said the morning sun, Ayurveda, morning sun gives you energy. He said afternoon sun takes it away. Sometimes he would take his massage. He would get the sun on his back because it was giving energy. Massage, what were the two other things kept him alive? His morning walk, massage. His Ayurvedic medicine was the third thing. And he didn't have a cabinet full of medicines. I always tell Vishaka and my mother-in-law here, they clean Prabhupada's rooms and the cabinets. Everything you see under lock and key in the cabinets is getting cleaned all the time. It's spotless in there. And in the one side room, that was my servants' quarters when I was with Prabhupada. You'll see a straw mat on the floor there. That was literally where I slept every night. Every night while I was there. That was my sleeping place, the servants' quarters. And there's one shelf there, has all these things. It says Prabhupada's medicines, different kinds of oils, and it's got them little shells for massage, so many things. But they were all only what was used in the final months. And mostly they were things that were being offered as service to Srila Prabhupada. I traveled with him 2.5 years 4 or 5 times around the world. He never took any allopathic medicine 2.5 years, no matter what his situation was. He had one Ayurvedic medicine he took every other morning, we say religiously, if the servant remembered. If he didn't remember, he'd call me, say, why didn't you give me my medicine? Yogendra Ras. Still available, you can look it up. What are the ingredients, main ingredients? See, you don't know everything. Crushed pearls and gold powder. If you actually get genuine Yogendra Ras, you're going to spend a lot of money for a handful of maroon-colored balls that will be in the bottle. And he got it from one pharmacy he trusted back in 1970s. At that time, he only trusted one pharmacy. Sadhana Asadalaya. Yes, that was the pharmacy. And they would ship it from India, if they had to, anywhere in the world. And it was taken with 2, what do they call when you take Ayurvedic medicine with the other thing? It's called the vehicle. That had 2 vehicles. Honey, which is very often a vehicle for Ayurvedic medicine, and this one, black cardamom seeds. Not the white cardamom. These were like this big. And the actual outer covering was more like a brownish color. It was called black cardamom. So also in his white bag was this little mortar and pestle. I guess the pestle's the thing that does the mortar's it was a little black mortar and pestle, just this big, because it went everywhere around the world. These were some of Prabhupada's instruments he used. His white bag had things that traveled with him that would go on his desk. So that was my job every other day when he came in from the bathroom, before putting on his tilak, early in the morning. I would have all ground up, the mortar, pestle, with 2 balls of Yogendra Ras, little honey, and 1 cardamom seed, all crushed up together. And he would scrape the mortar with the pestle, and, put it in his mouth and suck it all off. Then he would grab the mortar and lick it all off the mortar. This had pearls and gold in it. And if you look up, one of you can look it up and say what it's used for. What are the indication one takes Yogendra Ras for? And so that all happened prior to the morning walk. Then he'd be on the morning walk. I had devotees ask me once, did Prabhupada prepare for class? I thought that there's many funny questions devotees will ask about Srila Prabhupada. That was also one of the funny ones. Did Prabhupada prepare for class? Say everything he did was class. There wasn't a question of preparation. He was always prepared. But everything could come together. If from 1 in the morning, say till 4 in the morning, he's translating, you might hear about that on the morning walk. And then when he goes into the temple room, whatever the verse may be, and we know listening to Prabhupada's classes, it's always astounding when you hear how he can weave this way, that way, but he's always right on that track of what he's describing and where the class is. Everything comes together. Sometimes in the morning, breakfast time, then he'd have breakfast. After breakfast, I'm going forward a little bit. He would say, in Mayapur one morning, did you record class this morning? I say, yes, Prabhupada. He'd say, play it. He said that was a really good class. He liked his class. Yeah. So he had the morning walk. Juhu, he could walk on, he liked one of his favorite places to walk, Juhu Beach, nice and flat, sand, always. And there were at that time, Juhu Beach, there weren't very many. There were a few buildings here, a wall or two here or there. And of course, we would be on the walk with Prabhupada, maybe a dozen or so. I never missed the morning walk. When you were with Prabhupada, he expected you, if he was out of his room, you had to be wherever he was. If he's giving class, you had to be there. I learned that lesson when I received Brahmin initiation, when I received Gayatri Mantra in Los Angeles. I had been living in a temple for a year in New Vrindavan, and we drove from New Vrindavan 5,000 kilometers to Los Angeles to see Srila Prabhupada and to get Gayatri Mantra. Kirtanananda was our leader there in New Vrindavan at the time. So he brought myself and Kaladri, a few others, and he brought us up into Prabhupada's room, and he introduced us to Prabhupada. The last time I had seen him was my first initiation, which was July 1971. So now it was 9 months later, May 1972. So Kirtananda brings us into Prabhupada's room, and he said, Prabhupada, these are brahmacharis from New Vrindavan. And Prabhupada looks, what is your name? And devotee says, Kaladri, Srila Prabhupada. Very nice, Prabhupada goes. And we're sitting on his white tile floor, shiny, because they always washed it and waxed it every day. Very shiny, white floor, tiles. Then he looked at me and said, what is your name? Nothing came out of my mouth. I just looked at him, and I hear Kirtananda say, that's Srutakirti, Prabhupada. Some very nice boys. We were going on the morning walk every morning. We had one other boy came across country with us. I think it took us 4 days to drive across country in a windowless van, all sitting in the back of this windowless van. But nothing mattered. We were going to see Prabhupada, hear Prabhupada. One morning walk, one young boy, we were young, 19, 20, but this one boy was in high school that Kirtanananda brought. He was like 16. And he was kind of behind. You know, everyone's trying to be as close to Prabhupada as they can on the walk. And Prabhupada walked quickly. And this boy was lagging behind. He was watching the sand crabs. You know, early in the morning as the sun's rising, and as the waves go back and forth, the sand crabs come out from their little holes, and they run this way, run that way. Then the wave comes, and they go back down. So he was watching these crabs. And Prabhupada's walking, and immediately says, this boy is too much attached. That was it, just like that. He said, too much attached. Another morning walk in Juhu. Prabhupada stayed. It was on the second floor, flat. At that time, there were just buildings, flats, few flats on each building. Prabhupada would come down the stairs, and all the devotees, of course, might be 1 dozen, 2 dozen devotees in Juhu at that time. Everyone would wait for Prabhupada to come down, offer obeisances. And we're outside walking by the little garden area Kanva had made. And everyone's doing dandavats, obeisances. And one boy just stood there, Indian boy, with his hands folded. And Prabhupada kept walking, and he looked at me and said, that's the beginning of his fall down. Imagine. We think we're so protected. One little thing, not offering your obeisances when you should. He said that's the beginning of his fall down. Because we become careless, inattentive. Being his servant, you learned. When you travel with Prabhupada, one thing you learned, you have to pay attention. every moment you have to know what you're supposed to do. And if he asks you to do something, you have to figure out how to do it. If he gives you an instruction, there's no, I couldn't figure that out. That's never a proper answer. We remember when we were in Caracas, Venezuela, 75, Prabhupada told his secretary, he said, find out about shipping Mercedes-Benz to India. We're in Caracas, Venezuela. So, of course, secretary goes out, he talks to a few devotees. Maybe he called up a place or two, I don't know. But in the afternoon, Prabhupada rang his bell. I went in, he said, call Paramahamsa, his secretary. So he comes into the room, we come into the room together. Prabhupada says, so what did you find out about shipping Mercedes from here to India? Well, immediately he was very proud. Prabhupada, there's no question you should even think about shipping Mercedes from Venezuela to India. They're built in Germany. From Germany, you can either ship them or you drive from Germany. Prabhupada looked at him. He said, I didn't ask you that. I asked you to find out what it would cost to send Mercedes-Benz from here to India. And the secretary just looked at him. Prabhupada looked at him. He said, you're superfluous. He said, go. So we both offered our obeisances, left the room. We got out of the room. Paramahamsa looked at me. He said, Prabhupada called me superfluous. He said, I don't even know what superfluous means. I said, that's what it means, you don't know. So you had to, it didn't matter what the instruction was, you had to follow it. So that morning, when he asked our names, he was about to have breakfast. So we're just sitting, just enjoying, sitting in the room with Srila Prabhupada. My hands are all sweaty. I remember my hands on the floor. My heart's racing, all sweaty. And then his servant comes in, pretty breakfast thali, silver katoris, silver goblet for drinking. He comes in and goes right beside his bed in the bedroom area. Prabhupada's table, his choki was always against the wall. And he would sit facing the wall, just on a straw mat. No big thick cushions, no table, dining room tables, chair. He would sit on the floor. So he comes and he brings the plate in. And Prabhupada, he put the plate, he came in, offered obeisances. Prabhupada looked at him. He said, where were you at class? I learned a few things right then. I was not Prabhupada's servant. I was just a young boy sitting in the room, little so-called brahmachari. And his servant said, oh, Prabhupada, I was preparing your breakfast. So he answered, he made us reason and excuse. And Prabhupada looked at him. He said, cutting fruit? Anyone can cut fruit. He said, your business is to be at class every day. So I knew then, I never had any idea I would be his servant one day. But when I did, I knew, that's your business. Prabhupada's on the morning walk, and that's all I was told when I became his servant, Shyama Sundar. I didn't know anything. I've been in the temple for 16 months and living in New Vrindavan. I was milking cows, mending fences, baling hay. Then after Brahmin initiation, I was in the kitchen. No running water in the kitchen, no bathroom in the farmhouse. There was an outhouse outside, a well outside. It was a very simple, austere lifestyle. But I learned that when I became his servant. Shyama Sundar said to me, you're his servant. We had very specific services. There was a servant, a secretary, and his Sanskrit editor. When he told me, when Prabhupada rings the bell, you go in the room. Not that anyone goes in, the servant goes in the room. And generally Prabhupada would say, get this person, get that person, get this person, get that. Not always, but, and he said, when Prabhupada's in the car, you sit next to him. He said, when Prabhupada's on the plane, you sit next to him. He said, do you know how to use a tape recorder? I said, sure. That's like asking a 10-year-old if they know how to use a cell phone. You know, now they know everything. I said, yes. He said, on the morning walk, you walk next to him and you record whenever he speaks. I said, okay. That was it. That was all the instructions. Everything else you learned as time went on. I watched. I had never touched another body, another male body my whole life. I was going to have to massage Prabhupada. The thought was frightening. Not like I was eager. I was petrified, touching his body. The body from the spiritual world. I was supposed to not just touch him, massage him. The first day I got to watch Sudama Maharaj massage him. We're in Pittsburgh. And I'm watching, you know. And I'm thinking, Sudama's here. He had been his servant for months. So he's massaging him. So I thought, great, he'll massage Prabhupada every day for now. Then he finished the massage. Prabhupada, thank you. Sudama said, all right, Srila Prabhupada, I take your leave. I'm flying to Japan now. And my heart sank. I thought, oh no, I'm going to have to do it. Prabhupada, first day, he massaged my leg. How many people were massaged by Prabhupada? How many people massaged Prabhupada? A few dozen. But he showed me how to massage. While I was massaging him, I was massaging his leg. He grabbed my leg. I jumped off like this. He showed me how to massage like this. So then I did just what he asked. The very first morning walk. Did I bring a chatter? Chatter just like this in Dallas. When the sun comes up, the temperature starts to change. It was very cool. Prabhupada had his chatter on. So then the sun came up. Prabhupada took off his chatter. He just took it off and he like puts his hand out for me to take care of it. And I grabbed it, but I didn't know what to do with it. And Prabhupada took it back. There's a picture, one of the first pictures. I saw it. It was first few years ago for the first time. Prabhupada and I holding his chatter. He showed me how to fold a chatter. He showed me how to fold a piece of cloth. You don't know what to do when you're around Prabhupada. All your intelligence can be taken away. You don't even know how you're breathing when you're around him in the beginning. So he said, like this. Didn't yell, didn't chastise me, didn't say, you fool, you don't even know how to fold a chatter. But he showed me how to fold this chatter. So together we folded his chatter. So, okay, we'll go through the morning walk. See, this is, again, Ayurveda. Breakfast was light. Ayurveda, your main meal is when the sun's highest in the sky. I don't think anyone in India does that. 10 o'clock at night, they'll be eating puris and sabji and sweets, right? It's typical. I remember going to programs 10 o'clock at night. I'm thinking, I have to get up 4 o'clock in the morning. How am I supposed to do this? When it's highest in the sky. And one of the first things he told me, he said, you make my plate, you don't put too much on the plate. He said, you put too much on the plate, I'll lose my appetite. He said, if I want something more, I'll tell you, little more dal, little more rice, like that. He said, just a little bit on the plate. The other thing he said, your meals regulated. His lunch was at 1 o'clock here in Vrindavan. Daiva Shakti will tell you, you can't be a minute late. Because as soon as it's time to eat, your stomach starts digestion processes. And if you don't put something in there, you'll get indigestion. So it's very important. See, Prabhupada followed nice schedule. You always knew. After his massage, which was 1.5 hours or so, and everything as you did massage, every part of his body, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, his legs, then his feet. You started at the head and worked your way down to the feet. That was massage. And each part, you did it until he gave you permission to move. You didn't just, it wasn't like, you went and paid for an hour and then they go to the next and they go, no, not with Prabhupada. You started massaging his head, and when he gave the nod, then you went to the back. And his back, that was his favorite place for massage. You could massage his back. And he told me one day, after a long time, after many months, he said, you can massage my back as hard as you like. I was like 21 years old. I had some shoulder. I thought, okay. And I start pushing and pushing because I'm waiting and I'm thinking, it was like a competition. Prabhupada challenged me, as hard as you like. I thought, all right. And I'm pushing and pushing. And Prabhupada, we see the size of Prabhupada. He couldn't weigh much over 100 pounds, 110 pounds, something like that. Maybe 120 pounds, I don't know. 50 kilos, 55 kgs. And I'm pushing and pushing, and he's sitting there like he's watching a show or something. Nothing. He's just sitting there totally relaxed. And I'm pushing on him. It's like pushing on the wall here. He doesn't move. Prabhupada, little Prabhupada. And I'm pushing and pushing. And I'm waiting to get to the spot. He never said, okay, that's hard enough. He defeated me in the massage. And then he said massage. He said passive wrestling. All know wrestling. Passive wrestling. He said, you do all the work, I get all the benefit. But I always knew it was just the opposite. He was doing all the work, we're getting all the benefit. Huh? But that was his mercy. And that's how he would say things like that. And they were just so endearing, and they're pushing and pushing and pushing. I was with him for a year. And I knew what to do. Massage here, massage. And one day I thought, I'm massaging his head. And I stopped on my own. Massaged his back for so long. And then I moved to the side. And he's sitting there. He didn't say anything. I did it one day. I did it 2 days. There's so many things. I don't know, Narayani Mata, if you ever incurred this with Prabhupada. 3 chances. In the U.S. we have in baseball, 3 strikes and you're out. Lord Chaitanya, Kalo Nasteva, Nasteva, Nasteva. 3's very important number. And with Prabhupada, 3 times. 3 times. So I massaged one day, my own schedule of moving. The second day, the third day, and I'm oblivious to Prabhupada's mood. I have no idea. My mind, who knows where it is. And I'm pushing and pushing. And I took my hands off his head. Before I could even move them, I heard it. You massage until I tell you to stop, not until you tell you to stop. And that was it. And that was the life of being Prabhupada's servant. He told his secretary, you don't move a pin from here to here on my desk unless I tell you. So this is what it was like to be with Prabhupada. You were servant, literally. You want to know what it's like to actually be servant. Serve someone. Serve a pure devotee who will test you anytime. Not necessarily all the time, but anytime he wants, he can test your ability to serve. Like a kirtan. We go through this all the time. People banging on the drum. Someone else leading the kirtan and the guy on the drum trying to speed it up. The guy with the wampers trying to speed it up. They did it with Prabhupada. He's on the Vyasasam playing his cartels and someone's nearby banging on his own, trying to increase. And Prabhupada looked at him. First learn to follow, then you can lead. This is our business, right? Everyone's instructed, become guru. But first you need to know how to be a disciple, perfect disciple. And then you can be perfect guru. Prabhupada was perfect disciple, perfect sannyasi, perfect. So he could lead the whole world. The chanting of Hare Krishna. So we got up to lunchtime. Lunchtime was for his servant, at least for me, most difficult, anxiety-filled part of the day. Before I went in to give massage, which is also pretty much at the same time every day, I would have to set up his cooker, which he showed me how to do it. 3 days. Not 4 days, not 2 days, 3 days he showed me how to use his cooker. He set it up, him and I set it up together, put it on the stove. He showed me what the flame should be like. Imagine inside this cooker you have dal on the bottom, you have rice steaming in the container on the top, you have all kinds of vegetables in the middle, and that cooker is going to be on the flame for an hour and a half. That's a very long time. But you can't burn the dal. You don't want to turn the vegetables into mush. So it was an art and a science to use the cooker. But he showed me how to do it. Then I did it every day. So you would set up the cooker and you'd put it on a low flame. Then you'd go in and massage him. Maybe the next room, could be the next building, could be across the street. And the whole time I'm massaging him, I'm meditating on the cooker. I hope it works out. I hope this doesn't happen. Because you don't know how long the massage is going to be. But miraculously, always worked out. Always worked out for me. I would make my chapati dough. Chapati's always puffed up. You couldn't bring him a chapati if it didn't puff up. Useless. Little ghee on the chapati. So you brought him his lunch. He'd be sitting there. You see pictures. This was his favorite eating position. This leg was up like this. This woman, and he just throw the seva. Prabhupada said, taking prasadam was also seva. It wasn't sense gratification. It's Krishna prasadam. And that's what you see. Watch these videos. You'll see Prabhupada. Everything is service to Krishna. So I bring in his plate, one chapati on it, still puffed up. That was part of with little ghee on the top. Ghee. Devotee came for the meetings. Did Prabhupada ever cook with oil? I said, no, we never had. Prabhupada said, Ayurveda, oil for the outside of the body, ghee for the inside of the body. You want to be healthy, this is the process for healthy. Every day, Prabhupada's whole body was massaged with mustard oil, sandalwood oil on the head. Why? Cooling. Prabhupada said, keep a cool head, right? That's what he told that reporter. Why do you shave your legs, she said. She said, why do you shave your head? Prabhupada looked at her with her little mini skirt on in the 70s. Why do you shave your legs? He said, better keep a cool head and warm legs. Always had the perfect answer. And humorously, he could give instructions with a sense of humor. So you bring him his plate, then you run out of the room. You don't walk. You bring him his plate, you put it down, offer obeisances. You run out of the room back to the whatever kitchen. Could be just the servants' quarters. Could be a closet. Many kitchens we had were closets. Make another chapati. Put it on, puffs up, put it on the plate, spread a little ghee on it. Run back into Prabhupada's room, slide it onto his plate, offer obeisances, and run out of the room 4 times, 5 times, 6 times. Finally, one of those times, put it on his plate, offer obeisances, and he'd say, okay, no more. It could be like 6 chapatis, not these big, huge things, nice little thin chapatis, cooked nicely, puffed up. Every time you offered obeisances, because you don't want the beginning of your fall down. When you become like that, you become casual. And Prabhupada could become casual with you, because you're with him 24 hours a day. He would tell you pastimes of his childhood. He could talk about anything. When the airplane, here, Air India airplane, everyone's boarding and we're sitting down. And from the sound system, it was classical, Indian, instrumental, tabla and sitar. And we're sitting there as everyone's boarding, and Prabhupada looks at me. He said, do you like this music? Immediately I became in anxiety. This is what you, because it's sense gratification. There's no chanting of Hare Krishna, no matter how nice it is, there's no chanting. So all this is, in a matter of a second, all these things are going through your head and you're trying to think of what to say, and he looks at me. He said, it's very nice. I said, yes, Prabhupada, very nice. I told that story. Harikesh was there. He said, that happened to me too. Same thing, we're sitting, the music, Air India, the music's playing. Prabhupada looked at me, said, do you like this music? I said, yes, Prabhupada, it's very nice. He said, it's sense gratification music. You're always wrong with Prabhupada. That was part of his fun. He loved this. We're like little puppy dogs with him, you know. We're making believe we're devotees. We're Krishna conscious. You know, personally, I felt way more Krishna conscious back then than I do here in Vrindavan 50 years later. He made you Krishna conscious. Sense gratification music. Tamal Krishna, never would he compliment you in front of you. He could say very nice things about you to others, but he wouldn't say something nice about you in front of you. Not generally. Came in Tamal Krishna Maharaj in Mayapur. He liked, you know, we had Prabhupada's cooker. So when I cooked, it was enough for three people could eat nicely, maybe even a little more. Tamal Krishna loved it. You know, that was, Prabhupada traveled with a cook. Why? It was very important to eat from the same hands every day. Not every day somebody else is cooking, different way of cooking, different style, different spices, different ingredients, different preparations. No, that's not Ayurvedic style. Every day. I cooked the basic same meal every day for lunch. Rice, chapatis, dal, 3 or 4 sabjis, very lightly spiced. That's what he showed me. That's what I did. I wasn't a kachori, samosa, pakora. I had to prepare his lunch during massage. Sometimes others would make things Prabhupada would take, but on a daily basis, that's what he ate. He never complained. He never said to me, you should do this like this. He never said anything. So I could only assume that it was okay. He ate it every day. And in the evening, he would eat something again, many times. And always hot milk at night, boiling hot. He said, it has to be boiling. He said, if it's not, he said, then you take it, it just turns to urine. So literally you would have to take with the spoon for the first half a dozen sips or so. It'd be so hot. But always milk. Very important to have milk. All this, whatever goes on in our society, if they think you should avoid milk, they don't understand our philosophy, not one bit. Every meal, Prabhupada had a milk product. Every breakfast, sweet. And he liked Bengali sweets. He liked his rasgullas and rasmalai and sandesh and sweet rice. He loved these preparations. And if we did anything else, he'd say, I showed you all the nice preparations to do. Where was I? Hot milk, yes, a hot milk at night. So very important. Here in India, or for the opening, he's told all his big GBC men were in charge of everything. He just saw his disciples. Everyone was just servant. Not that he just had a personal servant. Everyone was his personal servant. He made Jayatirtha in charge of the deities because he was like the deity minister at that time. Bhavananda was in charge of seeing everything was clean. Another GBC would be in charge of something. So everyone had a department. And he said, be sure to have cow's milk for everyone that's coming. He said every day they must get cow's milk, not this buffalo milk. So he saw wherever he was, he wanted to see that everyone was taking nice prasadam, taken care of. This was the business. So Tamal Krishna, he liked what I prepared very well. One day after lunch, at the end of lunch, he went in, we're all sitting there. And he said, Prabhupada, he said, Srutakirti makes first-class prasadam. I was all. And Prabhupada looked, he laughed. He said, yes, he makes nice American prasadam. Yes. I never cook shukta. I never know how to do shukta. I didn't learn shukta. We just have a few minutes left, and then Aratik's going to start. All of you, if you haven't offered lamps, you can offer lamps. Anyone, I didn't get through a lot, actually. We can do this again sometime. Anyone has any questions, comments? Yes, it was always sweetened. And again, with me, he was, I don't, because from other people that served him, they'll say different things, but with me, he never said, you put in too much sugar, you didn't put in enough sugar. Everything always seemed to be just right. And maybe he was just taking it easy with me, but there was always sugar in it, and on occasions, honey. Once he asked, a few times he would say, put honey in it. Once I said, oh, Prabhupada, Ayurveda, right? Becomes poison, you boil honey. He said, just put honey in it. He would always smash my ideas of what was right. The very first day he showed me how to use the cooker. It's in Dallas, Texas, USA. So we had basmati rice, and Prabhupada's on one side of the kitchen counter, and he's cutting vegetables, and he said to me, you wash the rice, with the bowl that it was going to be in the cooker. Little, like a little pot inside the cooker. So he said, you wash the rice. So I learned from Kirtanananda, how many times do you wash the rice? 3. So he's minding his own business on the one side, cutting the different vegetables. And I got the rice, whatever it was, a half a cup or something, and I'm swishing it, I got it, I'm swishing it around. And I pour the water out. And then I add more water, and I start swishing. He said, what are you doing? I said, I'm washing the rice 3 times, Prabhupada. He said, once is enough. Yes, Prabhupada. He had a special style. No, Jamuna, what did he say? Wash your hands, wash your hands, wash your hands. Every time she would do something. He was teaching her in also a very specific way. But in me, taught me in a also very specific way. But I learned that all these different things, sometimes you just be practical. That was Prabhupada. Use your common sense, right? As he said in one letter. Use your common sense, and if you don't have any, find someone that does. That's also common sense. To find somebody with common sense. That was Prabhupada's program. Yeah. Anything else? So yeah, milk, honey, sugar. I didn't ever put turmeric in it or cardamom, any of those things. It was milk, and it was always a cupful. And that was every night before he took rest. And there was always massage before he took rest in the bed, dry, no oils. Yes, Mataji. How was? Ekadasi, peanuts and raisins, carrot halava. They were always there. Any subject could be there. I didn't know of any restrictions with can't use this spice, can't use this vegetable. I mean, two of our main preparations, peanuts and raisins and carrots, carrot halava is according to some lineages are not even allowable. We used eggplant, we used potatoes. These were our favorite things for Ekadasi. We didn't have access. If you could get sabudana, you could make a nice sabudana kheer or something like that. I was, I could cook, but I wasn't like I was an expert at a variety of things. And in 1972, 73, so many things weren't even available in the West. We were in Switzerland. We couldn't even get wheat flour. Prabhupada said, but we had suji. Prabhupada had me make halava for breakfast and then make suji chapatis. He said, just use the suji flour, make chapati dough. Here in the winter, he said, boil milk, curdle it, and then add the flour. He said, makes a nice, healthy, heavy chapati. So you would make the chapati dough with literally curds and whey in the chapati dough. Another style he showed me was you make the chapati dough and then you let it sit in water for some time, half hour, an hour, and then when you pick it out, it has that, so you pick it out of the water and then it brings out the gluten. So there were just a few different things. One evening he came up to me in Los Angeles. I had a 2-burner stove on the floor in my bedroom, which was just a small, like 2 meters by 3 meter room. So he came in, he would walk around and chant. He said, do you know how to make parathas? I said, I haven't ever made. He said, I'll show you. So then he just said, make a chapati dough. He said, and call me. So I made a chapati dough. He said, okay, instead of flour, you're going to roll it out in ghee. And then we had the skillet. So I rolled it out, made it round. Then he said, put ghee on it. I put the ghee. He said, now fold it in half. I folded it in half. He said, now roll it again into a semicircle. And then he said, put ghee. And then I put more ghee. Then he said, now fold it over again. So now it's in quarters. He said, now you roll it out like triangle. He said, now put ghee on it. So this thing was ghee. It was ghee filled. Put ghee. Then on the skillet, a little ghee. And then, of course, just put it on there. A little bit, turn it over, put some ghee on the top again. Turn it over, put some ghee. And just did that. And it came out beautifully. Nice golden brown, all flaky from all the ghee. So that's how he showed me. He would show me things very simple. He showed me potatoes and cabbage. Great, the cabbage, very, very thin. And he liked the flame high. Ghee. Then you put little spice on a high flame. And the little cube potatoes. So you're scorching it all the time. A little bit blackened, almost blackened. But that was a style. That's what he wanted. Bhakti Churu Maharaj tells a story. Prabhupada one day had this one preparation. So much ghee and so much chilies. He had Prabhupada, showed him how to make it. Then the next day, Maharaj made it himself for Prabhupada. But he thought, all these chilies can't be good for him, so many chilies. So he reduced it. Then he brought it to Prabhupada. Prabhupada said, what have you done? He said, well, Prabhupada, all those chilies. He said, well, that's why all the ghee is there, to balance out the chilies. So it was, Prabhupada said, my mother, she was first-class cook. He said, my sister, she was first-class cook. He said, my mother taught her how to cook. He said, and I'm a first-class cook. He said, but I learned just by watching. And he said that about a few different things. He learned just by watching. That's a sign of good intelligence. You just watch something. When Satsarup, we transferred, I was leaving Prabhupada's personal service. Satsarup was becoming his servant. He didn't know how to massage. So he said, Srutakirti, I don't know how to massage. I said, well, I'm still here. I said, you can come and watch. We know Satsarup Maharaj is right, author. So I'm massaging Prabhupada, going head, back, and Satsarup's there, he's got his notebook, and he's taking notes on the massage. I'm thinking, wow, I should have done that. That's really clever. And this went on for like 15 minutes, and I'm massaging, and Satsarup's watching, and Prabhupada looked at him, he said, what are you doing? He said, well, I'm watching Srutakirti give massage so I can learn how to massage. Prabhupada said, that's like trying to learn how to swim on the land. You couldn't do anything right in front of Prabhupada. That was the main thing. Whatever you did, you're wrong. He would say, get the book from the shelf, that blue book. And be like, you don't see any. There's one almost greenish. That must be it. This green one, blue. It's the same book. To you it's green, but to him it was blue, so you're wrong. It's blue. Yes, Prabhupada. We would sleep in. Oh, in Australia we slept in. Oh, I already have to stop. It's 6:30. We should stop, or you want to hear one more? He chastised all of us one afternoon. We ate so much in Australia, lots of ghee, lots of all your creams, clabbered cream, heavy cream, this cream, that cream. Oh, it was so good. And we were young, brahmacharis. We could eat. And then we slept very soundly, 4 of us. So Prabhupada rang the bell. We're all sleeping, but I finally hear the bell. Anyway, it went on. I offer obeisances, opening my eyes, and he's already yelling at me. I've been ringing the bell for hours. He said, you're all sleeping like dead men. He knew we were all sleeping. Where's Paramahamsa? I said, oh, he's resting, Prabhupada. Usually we enjoyed telling on others, not all the time. Call them. Call everyone. So I woke up and there was these 2 brahmacharis from Australia. They had no idea. I said, Prabhupada wants to see you. They were all excited. I thought, oh, you don't even know what you're about to witness. You're going to be part of great drama. So we all came in, offered obeisances. Prabhupada's yelling, you're all sleeping like dead men. He said, everyone, all the karmis. Prabhupada would say karmis, just like all the karmis are working very hard, he said, for their families, for their sex life. Not the devotees, he said, sleeping very peacefully. And everyone, he looked at us. Go ahead, go back to the room and sleep. Go. We all went back to the room. We're Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. You'll never sleep again. And then the bell rings. I go in, call them. I thought, oh, now what? I said, Prabhupada wants to see you. Now they don't look so excited this time. Prabhupada wants to see you. So we all go back into the room. And he looks at us. Everyone offers obeisances. And behind us is a little bookshelf with Prabhupada's books. They're the only books he read. All I ever saw him read was his books. And they expanded every month. So he looks at one of the young Australian brahmacharis. Said, just get a book and we'll read. We'll have class. So the devotee turns around. Which book, Prabhupada? I thought, oh no. Any book. So he grabs a book. Prabhupada says, read. What does the devotee say? Where, Prabhupada? Anywhere. I knew that. That's why I never tried to answer questions. Whatever you say, you're in trouble. Anywhere. Then he started reading and everything became very pleasant. All right, we have to stop here. Thank you all for attending. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Hare Krishna.